A man stands in 1890, cloaked in wealth and power. He controls a bank, commands a railroad, and in his waistcoat pocket lies his most prized possession, a gold pocket watch heavy on its chain. But offer him a wristwatch and watch his face twist with disdain. In his world, a wristwatch is not a tool, it's jewelry, something for his wife. A serious man would rather wear a corset. But then, the world erupted into war, and everything he believed about masculine. In London, 1880, any respectable outfitter displays the unshakable hierarchy of male fashion. A man's watch resides in his pocket, specifically in the small pocket of his waistcoat, with a gold or silver chain tracing a path to a buttonhole. This chain, known as the Albert, was named after Queen Victoria's husband. At the end, a decorative fob dangles, emphasizing not just time, but identity. The ritual begins when a gentleman reaches across his body, pulls out the watch with 2 fingers, pops open the cover, and checks the time. Each motion asserts his mastery over time itself. This watch is more than a mere timekeeper. It is an heirloom. Fathers pass their pocket watches to sons. Railroad companies provide certified timepieces to conductors, for a train running on the wrong minute could spell disaster. The pocket watch symbolizes male identity, industry, and respectability. It is, without doubt, the most essential machine a man possesses. Yet, where does this leave the wristwatch? On a woman's arm, and wristwatches first entered the scene as mere bracelets, not yet seen as genuine timepieces. In 1868, the Swiss firm Patek Philippe crafted what is considered the first true wristwatch, commissioned by Countess Koskovich of Hungary. Adorned with gold and gemstones, the tiny watch face felt like an afterthought, setting a pattern for decades. These wrist-worn watches were marketed to women, nestled in the jewelry sections of department stores, alongside bracelets and brooches. Men, however, scoffed at the wristlet. The prevailing sentiment was clear: you'd rather wear a skirt than strap a watch to your wrist. The wristlet was deemed absurd on a man's body, a soft trinket that no serious man would wear. Military officers and businessmen alike kept their watches in their pockets, where they belonged. The thought of a soldier or industrial leader sporting a watch on a strap was laughable, reinforcing an attitude that would soon face an unexpected. As the world edged closer to conflict, small cracks began to form in the rigid wall of male prejudice. Strangely, these fractures appeared on the battlefield. When lives depended on precise timing, the dignity of the pocket watch faded in the face of practicality. In the late 1800s, around 1880, the German Imperial Navy commissioned a batch of wristwatches from Gerard Paragox. Naval gunnery officers needed both hands free to coordinate fire effectively. Thousands of these watches. Then came the Boer War from 1899 to 1902, where British officers faced a pressing issue. Modern warfare was accelerating. Timing was crucial. Artillery had to sync with infantry movements. A pocket watch was useless when a soldier needed to shoot, climb, and survive. Officers found a solution. They strapped their pocket watches to their wrists using leather holders. Some opted for purpose-made pieces. Companies like Mappin and Webb began selling campaign watches, designed specifically for use in the field. Soldiers were doing what civilians would have ridiculed back home. Above this, the wristwatch received a significant boost in legitimacy from a new frontier: the sky. In 1904, Brazilian aviation pioneer Alberto Santos Dumont became a celebrated figure in Paris. He flew early aircraft and balloons but faced a dilemma. While piloting, he couldn't check his pocket watch, so he approached jeweler Louis Cartier with his issue. Cartier crafted a flat, elegant watch designed to be worn on the wrist, allowing Santos Dumont to check the time without. This watch eventually reached the public, named after the daring aviator, the Santos. Suddenly, a wristwatch transcended its earlier identities as a soldier's tool or a lady's ornament. It became a symbol of a modern man conquering the skies. Yet, despite this shift, the prejudice against wristwatches lingered. By 1910, it remained a curiosity for many men, still needing further validation to cross the threshold into acceptance. Then the summer of 1914 arrived, and Europe marched into the First World War, confident it would end by Christmas. Instead, trench warfare stretched from the Belgian coast to Switzerland, creating a hellish landscape known as no man's land. Within this nightmare, the traditional methods of telling time quickly fell apart. Soldiers in trenches faced dire circumstances, holding rifles with gloved hands. Imagine asking a soldier to check the time while crouched in freezing water or pressed against the dirt. The old ways required unbuttoning a coat, reaching into a pocket for a delicate gold watch, flipping it open, reading the time, and then putting it away. Each second spent fumbling could mean death. The pocket watch, once a proud symbol of masculinity. Men fumbling for their waistcoats in the heat of battle were men not fighting back. Yet the wristwatch, once deemed trivial, became essential in this chaotic environment. By 1916, both warring sides developed a strategy requiring absolute precision: the creeping barrage. Artillery would bombard enemy trenches, but rather than firing randomly, they advanced their This coordinated attack demanded flawless synchronization between the infantry and artillery. If soldiers advanced too quickly, they risked walking into their own shells. If they moved too slowly, the barrage would roll ahead, leaving them vulnerable to enemy fire. In this context, time became a matter of life and death. Officers gathered, comparing watches, aligning them to the precise second before an assault. When the moment arrived, an officer would have one hand on the ladder, the other on a pistol or whistle, and his eyes fixed on a single timepiece, the one strapped to his wrist. A swift glance was all it took to signal the charge. The watch that once was mocked now marked the difference between coordinated success. The pocket watch had succumbed not to fashion, but to the brutal realities of war. Manufacturers quickly responded, transforming the wristwatch into a weapon vital for survival. The first challenge was darkness. Attacks often commenced at dawn or in the dead of night, leaving soldiers unable to strike a match to check their time without risking a sniper. The solution was a glowing paint made with radium, a radioactive material that illuminated the numbers and hands of watches with an eerie green light in the dark. Young women, often laboring in factories, painted these tiny dials by hand. In the trenches, the watches glowed beautifully, a small miracle amidst chaos. Yet the grim truth remained hidden. Radium was deeply poisonous, and many of those dial painters would later pay a horrifying price for the glow that helped soldiers. On the battlefield, delicate things met destruction. A watch crystal, the dome of glass protecting the dial, shattered from a knock, a fall, or flying debris. Manufacturers responded with shrapnel guards, metal grills, and cages bolted over the watch's face, allowing soldiers to read the time through the gaps. These trench watches, as they came to be called, embodied toughness. They looked purposeful, like essential equipment. Then there was the strap. Old wristlets featured delicate bands, while war watches sported sturdy leather straps, designed to survive being soaked, frozen, dragged through mud, and worn for weeks without coming off. The wristwatch transformed from a piece of jewelry into a rugged, reliable instrument, engineered to endure the worst conditions imaginable. Consider this transformation. Within a single generation, the wristwatch shifted from being sold alongside diamond brooches to being issued for synchronized killing. By the end of the war in 1918, hundreds of thousands of men wore a wristwatch daily, enduring the most intense experiences of their lives. These weren't soft men needing convincing. They were survivors of history's bloodiest war. They crawled through barbed wire and poison gas. In the early 1920s, the war-weary men returned to civilian life, bringing their habits back home. An officer who had timed assaults by wrist for 4 years would not revert to fumbling for a pocket watch. Crucially, the wristwatch now held an entirely new meaning. It was no longer feminine. It marked a veteran's identity. It signaled that you had been there, that you were modern, practical. The cultural meaning had inverted completely, driven by those who wore them and what they had endured. The market reflected this shift in cold numbers. Before the war, pocket watches outsold wristwatches by a massive margin. By 1930, that ratio flipped. Wristwatches began outselling pocket watches 50-1. In just 2 decades, an entire category of object evolved from a male to boot. The pocket watch quietly retreated to antique drawers, relics of a slower, more formal world, while the wristwatch, that glowing instrument from the trenches, claimed the wrists of nearly every man in the developed world. But the market's shift is only half the story. While soldiers changed the perception of watches, a small, mountainous, neutral country found its way to dominate the industry. Switzerland, a name that graces countless timepieces, holds a hidden tale. To understand how it conquered the watch world, one must journey back to the Jura region. There, a tradition stretched back centuries, where farming families turned to craftsmanship during long, brutal winters. They created watch parts, tiny gears, springs, screws, and plates, fashioned by hand with generations of artisans built a dense network of skilled craftsmen and small workshops, each specializing in a single piece of an impossibly complex machine. By the 1800s, Switzerland boasted a concentration of precision watchmaking talent unmatched anywhere else on Earth. Geography gifted them an unfair advantage. While Europe waged war, their factories escaped bombardment, and their workforce was not marched off to the front lines. Production lines continued while competitors in Germany, France, and Britain focused on artillery shells and aircraft engines. When the world demanded millions of rugged, reliable wristwatches for soldiers and veterans, Switzerland stood uniquely positioned to fulfill. Not only did the Swiss possess the skill, but they also had the peace to keep building while others were distracted by conflict. Renowned names emerged from this era. Longines and Omega established Swiss houses, supplied military watches, forging reputations for precision under fire. But perhaps the most telling story belongs to a company. In 1905, young German Hans Wilsdorf launched a watch business in London with his brother-in-law. Wilsdorf's obsessive belief in the wristwatch's future clashed with many who thought it merely a fad. He named his company Rolex, a name that would resonate globally. After the war, Britain imposed heavy taxes on gold and silver for watch cases. Wilsdorf made a pivotal decision, relocating to Switzerland in the heart of the centuries-old watchmaking region. This choice laid the groundwork for one of the industry's most valuable names. In 1926, Rolex achieved a milestone, crafting a case completely sealed against water and dust, aptly naming it the Oyster. To prove its durability, they arranged for a young typist named Mercedes Glaetze to wear one while swimming the English Channel. After 10 hours in cold, open water, she emerged, and the watch continued ticking. The message resonated loudly. This was no longer a fragile ornament to shield from rain. This was a tough, sealed, dependable machine ready for the ocean. The transformation born in the trenches reached its zenith. The wristwatch had evolved into a symbol of male competence, adventure, and reliability. Yet, consider what a mechanical wristwatch embodies. Inside that tiny case, smaller than a coin, over 100 separate parts come together. Gears with teeth finer than a strand of hair, a balance wheel swinging back and forth, all working tirelessly. Springs coiled with such precision that a mere fraction of a millimeter could alter everything. It stands as one of humanity's most complicated machines ever mass-produced. This delicate and intricate world, assembled by hand, could comfortably hide beneath a shirt cuff. Switzerland built its fortune on a tiny country devoid of an empire, colonies, or abundant natural resources, rose to become one of the wealthiest nations on Earth. The Swiss watch industry would define luxury, surviving the brutal challenge of cheap electronic quartz watches in the 1970s and reinventing itself as the maker of the world's finest mechanical timepieces. All of it anchored in the wrist that men once shunned. The world remained unaware of the monumental shift initiated by that little glowing trench watch. So, the next time you check the time on your wrist or phone, remember its origins. It comes not from fashion or designer whims, but from young men huddled in freezing trenches a century ago, watching the second-hand glow green in the... They awaited the exact moment to climb ladders into gunfire, requiring both hands free and time at a glance. This simple, brutal necessity rewired an entire civilization's notion of masculinity. Reach into that Victorian gentleman's waistcoat, pull out his proud gold pocket watch, the centerpiece of his identity. In his lifetime, that object became an antique, while what he once dismissed as women's jewelry adorned nearly every soldier, president, and working man. The most masculine object a man could possess began its life as a lady's bracelet. The bloodiest war in history facilitated this change, and it never reverted. The wristwatch, born from necessity, transcended its origins to become a symbol of strength and resilience. The journey ends here, but the adventure lingers on.